script I have. Well, hi there, everyone. We'll be with you in just a second as we're getting up ready. I got to get the script that I need to read. I just realized that Zoom coordinator and I've been doing it all, forgot to open up the darn script. So give me just 1 second. Okay, since we have a pretty small group, I'm going to go ahead and promote people up to the as panelists so we can all see each other. If it gets out of hand, then I can always stop that. But I think
Ready for the Brady Bunch theme.
yeah. Hey, Leslie. Hey, John.
Morning,
David.
Chief. Morning, Mike.
Hi, John.
Hi, Leslie. How are you?
Good. How are you feeling?
I'm good. Not liking this home confinement stuff, but
Why you have to stay home for a number of days?
I have to stay home until the test result comes back.
Oh. How many days has that been?
It's just been a couple, so but everything runs late right now as far as their testing. So,
Mhm.
Well, good luck, John.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
oh no, it's just I'm perfectly fine. Just abundance of caution, you know. Got to practice the things I'm telling my employees to do. If you're sick and you have symptoms, you got to stay home, and so.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started. This open meeting of the Northborough Local Emergency Planning Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to due to current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gathering, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible location. All members of the local emergency planning committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. Order allows the LEPC to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise, and I'm not noting otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to the Northborough remote meetings on YouTube. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comments if there are anyone who has anything they would like to say. I am not going to go through and do a full roll of all the members here. I don't think that's necessary in this case. If you do have something that you need to say, or there is a vote, we will do a roll call on any of the votes, such as accepting the minutes and etc. So welcome. How's everybody doing today?
All right.
Good morning.
Yep. Right. Okay. So this is a weird way for our LEPC to meet, and mainly because I'm like John, I like to meet in person. I hate doing these things, and hard to have any interaction with people. But we'll do the best we can here. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring up our PowerPoint to start, and then I'm gonna have Michael take over here in just a second.
All right, thank you, Chief. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being in attendance in this webinar. I know it's unorthodox for us to meet this way, but it's necessary due to social distancing requirements, and we appreciate your participation as always. Just a recap for anybody joining in a different avenue than we're currently meeting right now on Zoom. These are the three ways that people can either tune in or join. So you can view or listen only via YouTube, and obviously via Zoom, how we're meeting. And you can also dial in via telephone. So those are all of the things that people can consider as they move into this meeting. And again, thanks for being here. Some goals and objectives. We're going to look at the, under old business, look at the minutes of the November 14th meeting. I hope everybody had a chance to review and consider those minutes. And if so, I would like to get a motion to approve those minutes.
No. Once you finish this, then we'll get into that. It's
Okay.
going to cover the goal and objectives, right?
Okay. Yeah, so we're also going to look at some updates regarding recertification under new business, recap of tier 2 reporting, as well as any hazmat responses that the department had gone on, training updates, and other business open comment for anyone to weigh in on any matters concerning the LEPC.
Just expanding so I can see everyone's here so I don't miss anybody during a roll call. So is there a motion to approve the minutes of the November 14th, 2019 meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of November 14th, 2019.
A motion by Mr. Dan, seconded by Mr. Moran, is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Right, okay, we're gonna do a roll call vote. Leslie Rattan,
Aye.
Robert Moran,
Aye.
John Kader,
Aye.
Kane, Mr. Sweet,
Aye.
Mike Serapiglia,
Yes, aye.
and Chris Carlton.
Aye.
Oh, look at that. And I'm an aye.
Unanimous.
Aye. Oh, look at that, unanimous. Every now and then I get lucky. The funny thing is I can run these things like crazy as the admin, but to do it from this end, it's a little strange, I tell you. Okay. Here we go. Go ahead, Michael.
We initially had wanted to go around the room, kind of see who's in. I think we're all familiar with each other, so that would be a bit redundant. But we wanted to also highlight the new employee for MEMA, Kevin Filchak. He's a local coordinator. He's going to be working hand in hand with local communities in Region 3 and 4. And he's assigned to Northborough. He comes to us from the town of Sturbridge, which he has a vast emergency preparedness and emergency management background, amongst other things. And we're excited to have him. If for any reason you would like to reach out to Kevin for a welcome or congratulations, or if there's anything in the future that you may need from MEMA or Kevin, you can feel free to open the discussion and dialogue with him through any of these contact information sources.
So Kevin is the new Bruce. He's replacing Bruce.
Okay.
For those of you who remember Bruce. Somebody have something, a question?
No, it's Mike Serpil. I was just going to ask that, his responsibility, but that's clear. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So he was scheduled to be here today, but after I had a call with him yesterday, the day before, and he said, "Oh, I won't be there because," and I'm going to elaborate just a second on why. And this is a slight deviation from the agenda, but he called to let me know that MEMA, in preparation of a potential surge due to the second wave coming of COVID-19, has determined they're going to provide each community within the Commonwealth with some PPE. And that distribution actually started. He's working at a pod today, and that's why he couldn't be here. And it's going to be distributed based on population, and it's my decision what we do with it. Oh, lucky me. We're getting 10,500 N95 masks, 10,500 surgical masks, a little over 1,000 face shields, and about 140 goggles. And ours will be ready probably next week to be picked up. That's why Kevin's not here today. He's actually out working at a distribution, different part of the state. So that's why he hasn't been here. Michael and I have met with Kevin already in person. Really great guy. He's there to support us, and he's looking forward to being a member of this committee and participating. Any questions on that?
Chief, where do all these get delivered? And how do they get distributed?
Okay, so those will all be available. We'll have to go pick them up. They'll be out of the bunker in Framingham. So we'll go up to Framingham, we'll pick them up, we'll bring it back here to the station. Then the decision needs to be made, and I have some ideas where some of it should be distributed, and I don't think that's a topic for this meeting in particular, but I think that's a separate meeting. But then we needed to figure out how we're going to distribute them within town. There's no way the fire service or the police department are going to use 10,500 N95s. At least, my goodness, I hope not, or we're really in some serious trouble.
Yeah.
I think a good place to put those or to work with is we need to work with the school district and,
Yes, okay.
and see what they need for PPE. I've already had some conversation with Greg on some emergency planning yesterday.
Okay.
I know he has indicated one of their big concerns with sourcing PPE. Now Southborough will get the same type of with less because they're a smaller population, but look at the same type of distribution. So we'd work together with the high school as what we would share with the high school, and then we would be work with our K-8 schools.
Okay.
But I just think that's an appropriate use of it. But obviously not 100% of it, but some of it, and I know that was one of Greg's concerns, sourcing that stuff. Any other questions?
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Chief.
Certainly.
All right, so one of the topics for discussion that we had with Kevin was the LEPC recertification process. As you know, going along, this has been kind of a drawn-out process due to a number of reasons, including some turnover within MEMA, obviously the pandemic with COVID-19. So as a result, they've had limited CERT meetings, State Emergency Response Commission meetings, to review all applications and consider them for recertification. So with that in mind, we've been assured that there will be no penalties or lapses in our current certification, and we'll still maintain eligibility for grant opportunities in the future. So we're still in good standing. We have to continue to meet as always and follow the proper channels in reporting and the like. But in any event, that's the long and the short on the LEPC recertification. They are going to entertain within the next few months a CERC meeting to look at some additional applications. And when that happens, we hope to be among the front runners in the queue.
Good.
Good. Thank you.
Excellent.
GIS software. So one of the, I think, really cool new things that we're doing is we're working in collaboration with David Kane, and we're working to get some of the GIS technologies up to date through the ESRI company and through their platform. And what this will basically allow us to do will let us do more comprehensive planning using town-specific data. We'll be able to log in and see in real time different facilities, different routes, different resources we have available, which I think will make a huge difference in the long run, especially if we have to open up an EOC or work remotely for an extended period of time, such as what we're experiencing now. This is kind of a highlight in something new and emerging. And Chief, if I'm forgetting anything.
No, I'd like David to jump in and maybe he could elaborate on the dashboards and explain what he presented to us at the meeting we had down here. David, is that okay with you? I know I didn't give you a heads up.
Yeah, not a problem. Happy to do it. We have ESRI offers a variety of dashboards that are intended to aid different public safety efforts. And in this case, we've taken some of the data from the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan and started mapping it using these dashboards. So it allows us to to look online at the town's GIS and see, well, you know, hazardous material sites, what's stored where, what are some of the and other important aspects of the emergency management plan. Mike, that would include like assisted living facilities, places where certain chemicals are stored. What's some of the other data in the plan there?
Also, special facilities needing additional consideration, such as early childhood centers, places of religion, cultural historical sites, shopping centers, public venues, recreational areas, things like that.
And what's nice is there's multiple dashboards, so we could have one dashboard that would list, or we'd use it to go and find all our hazmat stuff or all of our critical facilities. We could have another dashboard we can use in the middle of the storm that we can use to plot all of our road closures due to storms, or due to trees down or wires down. We could have another dashboard that has our resources mapped on it. And this would be available to any members of our EOC that we activate, or if we bring in the LEPC for different things, they'd be available to them as well. We control that, David, through password.
Yes,
Right.
it's not publicly available. It's used, credentials are needed to log in. And one of the other cool things about it is that it's mobile friendly as well. So if someone has a tablet and they're dealing with an emergency issue and they're out in the field, all of this information is available on the, you know, on any cellular enabled device, a phone, an iPad, anything like that.
Right. So, for example, we respond to St. Cobain for an incident, and we can bring up our ARC map, and we can look at St. Cobain, look at the 4 different buildings, click on each building to get the attributes for that building. You know, what chemicals are in this building, or you know, what do we have to be concerned about this building? So it's another way for us to have pre-planned data available in the field. We already have a couple of them, but to me, you can never have enough resources, because something's going to go down in the middle of a crisis. It doesn't allow you to have access. So I think it's a great partnership, and looking forward to moving ahead with it.
Yeah, the other added benefit will be the enhanced mapping capabilities. Currently, we're using some archive data that we use through the state, as well as the GIS software that we have right now, in addition to things like Google Maps. And what this will do, it will provide an in-house mapping system with added security that we can then manage in-house and retain accountability for.
Yeah, so a great example of the storm dashboard would be Chris Carlton's in dispatch, and he's tracking road closures. And he can actually go onto this map and note where the roads are closed. And then when they're dispatched out, he can say, hey guys, this is this, don't go this way. Or once he puts it in there, we can see it as well. So very, very advantageous. So we're looking for it. Did I miss anything, David?
Yeah, we'll also have data from the new flyover shortly in there as well. So we'll have up-to-date information.
Yeah, very accurate. Anything else? Okay, thank you. We'll go. If there's any questions on that, now we'll move ahead.
Chief, a real quick question. In terms of of where chemicals are stored and what chemicals are stored in a particular location, how good are our businesses about providing updates to you?
Actually, we'll talk about that in a second, and they're very good because because they have to. So because of tier 2 reporting, they have to report to us what they have on site. The hard part is not so much them reporting, it's us keeping track of some of these places. So a place like St. Cobain could have, I don't know, hundreds of different chemicals in very small quantities. So they report to us, but we have to be able to track what those are and where they are. Other places may have only a few types, but have large quantities. So that's one of the things we're hoping to be able to incorporate with this, so we can a little bit easier see everything that's there. So we incorporate our tier 2 reporting with our Esri mapping to be able to see them both.
Okay. Thank
Anything
you.
else, guys? The only problem we would have, Leslie, is some of the smaller industries or newer industries that either one, don't know they need to report, or 2, just don't report because they don't want us to know what they have. We have had those situations. We run into those when we get on a call and we get out there, we go, what's this and why is it here? Oh, we didn't know we had to tell you. Okay. I don't quite believe that most times. So that does happen.
All right, transitioning to tier 2 reporting. This is a bit of a recap of reporting year 2019. I can't see the count. I think it's like 52 or 54 chemicals from 20 facilities. One facility had 11, and the average of all reporters 2.7. And really, what this gives us is it's a federal requirement that when people report tier 2, it basically satisfies a lot of EPA stuff. We have to take this information, not only share it with amongst our LEPC, but also the fire department, and that information is used for pre-planning and response and things like that. So it provides us with SDS safety data sheets, chemical inventory, site plans, and in Northborough, we require both electronic and physical copies. This format will allow us to upload into things like Cameo, Marplot, and the whole Cameo suite software that the EPA puts out. So it's kind of a comprehensive all-in-one look at what facilities have, what they're doing with them, what kind of quantities are there, and how they can be found and where they're stored. So this helps us.
Now, the only drawback with this is that tier 2 reporting is based on, as Michael said, on quantity. So we may have a substance that doesn't break that threshold that they have to report, but we as first responders want to know it's there. That's where the storage permits come in handy, because then it may not be a tier 2 reporting, but they have filed it on their hazmat storage permit. So we do know what they have in hand. So we get these different sources of chemicals and we want to bring them all together. And again, we have it in our firehouse and our software, our records management software, but we also want to have it available in the field.
And these chemical inventories that you'll see are all chemicals that are found within Northborough. They're largely captured through Chief Parenti had implemented the NFD pre-plan, the fire department pre-plan document that requires all applicants upon either initial application for permit or subsequent reapplications to complete this pre-plan. And it lists things like chemical inventories, locations, storage types, and the like, but also in some cases, maybe more importantly, updated contacts for the facility. So the representatives, the people who we're actually going to call at 2 a.m. if we have an issue. And that gives us a channel to bridge communication, to start that dialogue, and extend that hand to build a relationship with that facility. So as you go through here, you know, there's a lot of chemicals, a lot of which are relatively benign, but there are also some things that are, you know, could be concerning from a first responder emergency standpoint point of view.
So you'll see these numbers here, they represent a count of a report. So we may have 44 for gasoline. Doesn't mean there's 44 different instances. It means there could be, so we have 44 different reporting. One gasoline station could report 3 different times for 3 different tanks. That's how that plays. These are all the different ones we have. So there are some ones that, looking at them from a first responder, and I'm sure that you guys that are members of the LEPC look at some of these and go, oh man, that's some stuff that I really would rather that we don't get into, and that really scares me. And it does. So some of it I look at and I go, oh, I don't want to deal with that. That's scary stuff.
So everything is connected from the tier 2s to the pre-plans to the permits. These are the permits that we've issued, I believe, year to date.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know, as you take a quick look at the graph, you see that hazardous materials and flammable storage and LP are among the top permits that we do issue. And everything that we process actually either is or has gone through the NFD pre-plan document. So we get updated contact information, which is tremendously important, especially in the wee hours in the morning when you're trying to get a hold of someone and there's no one on site. So all these things are really connected, and really it more than enforcement, more than regulatory, it allows for a channel to communicate with facilities. So
Yeah, as I've said since I've been here, it's really a partnership. We really need to be able to work together. We're incredibly lucky that 99.9% of our industries out there work really close with us, and they tell us what they have and where they have it. And they have no problem with the permitting, and it just works out really well for the safety of all responders. Interestingly enough, I'm working with the superintendent on the school's emergency plan, and this stuff actually plays into it. So where we've permitted hazardous material versus where a school is lets us know if we have to be concerned about spills or leaks in that vicinity or stuff going by the schools.
I guess interesting though, and as a side note, despite all of the restrictions with the COVID-19, we haven't seen any kind of lapses or pronounced lapses in any kind of permitting or regulatory affairs that we're dealing with. So that's a kudos to facilities being diligent in their own re-permitting and application process. So thanks. As you see here, these are the hazmat responses that the department has responded to.
Since our last meeting.
Yeah, since our last meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
So you see largely gas leaks, things like that. So you can take a quick look at this and see what you think. If you have any questions, just let us know.
So interestingly, number 2 fuel oil or diesel fuel, which are however and it really depends on how they classified it. I'll be honest with you. Different officers will say, okay, this is number 2 fuel oil, and someone else will say it's diesel fuel. I guess it depends on what container it came out of. One of them was a big spill we had in the basement of a residential house. And another one was a delivery truck that was driving all around town. And did we put that in as a case study? I don't remember if I put that in here as a case study.
Don't think so.
So we had a FedEx truck. We had a report of a leak on Newton Street. Captain went out there and found diesel fuel on the middle of the road and traveling all over that whole neighborhood. So he's out, he had our squad go out. We're chasing all around the whole area, finding these leaks everywhere. And they finally caught up to the vehicle at a residence making a delivery, and his fuel tank was still leaking there, as a matter of fact. So it was a real challenging call. It was kind of, and that's what ended up with that.
So if you take a look at this, this chart here, these are the incidents, January 1 to the 15th, when this chart was created by year. So you see some trends developing here. Moreover, I'd like to think that in 2019, that reduction in some of the hazmat incidents was due to better regulatory, but honestly, it's just it's the ebb and flow of a long period of time, and just looking at the data critically from that standpoint. So just for your information, that's what we've done year to date by year.
So this is an example of getting back to what Mike was talking about, the pre-planned document that we send out to everybody and the information that comes in, this is where it goes. So this is a printout from our records management software. And I just happened to pick the fire station because I knew the fire station had everything that I wanted to talk about. So, we talk about, what's the property use? Is there a suppression system here? Is there alarms? And if so, what kind? And this is just a quick look for the officer in charge, for the incident commander, to see, what kind of building do I have? Where's my closest water supply? Where's my electrical shutoffs, my gas shutoffs, hygiene information? Are there any special conditions? This has got a hose tower. All alarms are received at the communications center. The oxygen is present on the apparatus floor. All this important stuff for them to know. We also get storage tank information, which if I had the year of the tank, it's put in here, when it was built, when it was installed. If I don't have it, it's blank. That's kind of important because that lets us know is it towards end of life? Is it something we need to worry about? Here's our chemical inventory for everything we have, how much is stored, maximum, minimum, how it's stored, and contact information. This is a simple report that we can print out. That's why that when we send out, or Mike sends out that spreadsheet, if you can fill out as much as you can. If things change, send it back to us, and then we put it into our software.
Chief, can that be imported, or is that manual entry?
It can be imported, Michael, but I through a wizard. But I normally manually enter it simply because it gives me a chance to look at it. You know what I mean? So I can say, okay,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they had this tank out back, or I knew they had a tank, but I didn't realize what size it was. And it lets us, look at what we currently have in there, and does it match? So I'm showing that you have a 500-gallon tank, and you're showing you have a 1,000-gallon tank. Oh, what happened? How did that change? Was that our error? Was that your error? Well, if I just import it blindly, there's no oversight on it. And I'm kind of big that data's great, but crappy data doesn't do you any good. So if you're not careful and you don't review your data, it doesn't help you. So that's why each one is actually looked at individually.
Yeah, it makes sense. And for the others that don't know, the chief's right in line with the fire reports. It's the same way with quality control. So I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you.
This slide is a continuation from the last meeting. A lot of the things due to COVID-19 were put on pause. And we had the opportunity to rekindle this conversation when we met Kevin, the chief and I had met Kevin Filchek from MEMA a couple of weeks ago. We are still targeting a regional type emergency sheltering training in partnership with both MEMA and the American Red Cross. And we're anticipating this, barring any kind of resurgence of COVID or additional personal, distancing requirements, but before the end of the calendar year. So more to follow on this. If you'd like to be involved, if you'd like to attend, or just want to know more information about it, feel free to reach out and we'll try to get you some information. As always, any updates will be communicated to you in a timely fashion, and we'll go from there.
And during our meeting, Kevin really stressed the importance of doing regional shelters. He says the staffing, he says the Red Cross is just, and as you guys know, because you've had it happen before, the Red Cross just is not going to be able to assist you. They just don't have the manpower. We don't technically have the manpower to stand up a fully functional shelter as well. We can do partials, we can do showers, we can do that kind of stuff. But if we had a major incident that caused many people to be displaced, and again, most people don't even take advantage of shelters when we open them up. But if we had a major incident, a tornado, because they just had a tornado in the state last night, reportedly in the western part of the state. So if we needed to do this, this would be when we would open a regional shelter. John, do you have a comment?
Yeah, so sheltering has been an issue for us in the past. We've opened limited shelters up at the senior center. We've tended to open them up oftentimes where we have extended power outages. Luckily, not a lot of damage in terms of a storm where people need actual sheltering, but it's often a case of we've had a power outage for a week or so and people are cold, they need some place to go shelter, get something to eat. So we've opened limited shelters, and talking to our neighboring communities, generally what happens is one of us will open a shelter and the other will ask, can we send a few people? But by and large, what we've found in my 17 years of being here and opening shelters is that hard New England, Yankee folks, they tend to stay in their homes unless there's some compelling reason why they really can't. And so opening shelters, as the chief indicated, it's very labor intensive in order to staff it and to have all the proper precautions in place. And so it's difficult to do that and not very cost effective to do that when you may only have a dozen people or less. And that's what we've seen in the past is folks showing up looking for a hot meal, looking for a place to shower, a place to recharge their phone, but not really interested in overnighting. Now, that's very different than a situation where you find yourself where there's an actual incident and homes would be destroyed and people really need what we think of true sheltering and not just a temporary refuge from the cold. So talking with our neighbors, really the only viable way to do this that makes sense is to go with a regional shelter and trying to do it close by. People in Northborough generally don't want to go to Worcester for a shelter. They're looking for something local. So the extent that we can do that, I think makes a lot of sense. But it's just very difficult to train and to staff and to supply a shelter operation, particularly given the infrequency, thankfully, with which we need to use it. So the regional approach is definitely the way to go. And the Northborough is ready to roll. I mean, we can open a shelter on our own following a series of very difficult weather incidents back in 2011, 2012. It seemed like we had a patch there where in over a 5 or 6 year period, we had the ice storm in 2008. Basically, we saw some pretty significant weather situations, and so we own a trailer with 100 cots. We have our own sheltering plan, a sheltering coordinator, so we could open up a shelter if need be. But again, the difficulty comes with if it's a real incident and it's going to be of a significant duration, regionally is definitely the way to go on that. So we're prepared. We're prepared for limited shelter and to stand up a shelter quickly. But obviously, like most small towns, if it's a real significant emergency, we'll be overwhelmed. And the answer is a regional approach for sure.
Thanks, John. Leslie?
Hi, first of all, Mike, by the way, is there a way to turn your mic up at all? Because I can barely hear you when you talk, just to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm probably
He's just a soft speaker, you know?
trying to like properly social distance and all that stuff. I'll try to speak a little louder.
I don't want you to jeopardize your health here. I just didn't know if there was another
Oh, no.
mic louder. Do we know offhand whether or not there are other communities who are actively looking to regionalize this, such as Westboro, Southboro, Shrewsbury?
Yeah, we've had
Yes.
conversations over the years with all of our abutting communities, and some make more sense to partner with than others. But again, I think we're looking at some larger some larger regional approaches. I'll just say this: one of the things that I learned quickly going back to that ice storm in 2008, where most of the town did not have power for well over a week. We did contact the Red Cross, and the Red Cross was unresponsive. And so they didn't have cots for us. They didn't have resources for us. So coming out of that storm, for me, was an education, and we need to be able to take care of ourselves, at least out of the gate initially. And then, but the larger approach would be to working with our neighboring communities. And frankly, we've been the ones, because of our planning efforts coming out of 2008, we've been the one that has opened up shelters, and we've allowed other communities nearby to offer up our shelter as a resource for their residents. Again, what we tend to see is people will stay in their home unless there's a physical safety reason why they can't, and they'll tough out the cold. And if they do go to a shelter, they're interested in going to a shelter either in town or adjacent to us. So those are all things to look at. But again, if it's a hurricane, a tornado, a situation where there's a lot of destruction, that's different. The Red Cross is certainly more involved in these larger scale type things. But if it's the things that we found ourselves, so I've been here 17 years, the things that I found is generally winter storms and lack of power, and people get cold. Thankfully for us, that's been the primary need for some kind of a shelter. The other thing is what we've seen is just a need to open up a facility that has access to showers and food, so that people can come in, get a hot meal, get cleaned up, and charge up their phones, even if they decide to camp, so to speak, in their own home. So I think we're in actually pretty good shape. We're in better shape than most, but certainly in terms of a large scale incident, we're going to need to do something regionally.
Yeah, and that's really what this is aimed at. And we've spoken with Shrewsbury, we've spoken with Westboro, Southboro, all our neighboring agencies, and they're all in favor of it, because we're all in the same, as John said, we're all in the same situation with staff.
Yeah,
This
you can
is
get
Bob
something
from
up and running.
Nash-
Robert?
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question. I'm not sure whether it's to John or to the chief. How has COVID changed how you plan for sheltering, opening shelters, segregating people who may be positive, COVID positive? I don't know what that changes your impact of a shelter. I would imagine it does.
It actually does. And MEMA's put out quite a few guidelines through to all the emergency managers of, okay, if you have to open a shelter, these are what you have to do. And basically what it does, Bob, is it reduces how many we can put in there, and it increases our staffing. So it makes it even more difficult. I mean, one of the big things we have to be able to do is make sure the bathrooms are clean constantly, make sure the common areas are clean constantly, and that's a lot of additional manpower to do that. Again, that takes us back to that regional concept where we have more people, but the problem with that is now we have more people going to the shelter if it's a regional. So it's one of the things that has come out of this is a lot of hotels, motels have been used for these types of events because you can put one person in a room as opposed to putting, a bunch of people in a big gymnasium.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things that have been looked at and suggested through MEMA. Yeah, great question.
Yeah, so that actually supports the mentality of a regional shelter. I mean, rather than spend all the cost in one of the towns or in all of the towns, you kind of do it together and you can share that. So
Yeah,
Thank-
I think
thanks for that.
I think ultimately, Bob, we're looking at a little bit of a hybrid approach whereby if something significant happens, we want to be able to offer immediate services to our residents while we stand up a larger, more long-term regional shelter. As the chief indicated, one of the biggest issues we run into if we do open a shelter is it's got to be staffed 24/7. And so we've gone through pretty elaborate process of recruiting and training volunteers. But the problem is for this type of an assignment is that if it's like anything else, you don't need it. Thankfully, it gets hard to keep people trained and motivated. So they may get involved. You train them, you meet with them, but then if you don't need them for, thankfully, and I say this honestly, thankfully, for years, people they forget the training, and then it's keeping it fresh is difficult. And the only way I think you can do that effectively is through a little bit of economies of scale and working with core dedicated staff in multiple towns and core dedicated volunteers. But it is challenging for us to do that.
So have you identified a specific site that will serve as the regional shelter for X number of communities?
Well, that's one of the things we do. Oftentimes, communities will use a regional school just because of the size, but you have to make sure that the facilities are actually upgraded to be used. For instance, one of the issues is a lot of these the regional high schools. They use these motion sensor hand washing, and without power, if that's not on the generator to be powered, now you can't wash your hands. It's the things that you don't think of. Following the issues that so I started as the manager in 2008 here, the town administrator, and immediately within being here in that seat, within a couple of months, we had the ice storm in 2008, and we were surprised. We did a lot of training and a lot of planning after that. So for us, the Melican Middle School is our dedicated facility. We now have a generator that powers the entire structure. We now have the entire building is heated. We have the ability to provide showers and food and so forth. And we had the other thing too is we didn't have cots. Now we have a trailer. We have 100 cots on hand. We have blankets. The minimum things that we need. We just need to scale this up and plan on a regional basis to be able to deal with a bigger issue should one arise. Because as we know, we all get overwhelmed in terms of resource and needs. If it's a true emergency, isn't an isolated incident in a town or in a section of town. I think we're in good shape to deal with an isolated incident in town or a section of town where people need temporary shelter. But if you have a more widespread situation that's impacting us, we're going to need a regional approach for sure.
Yeah, Bob, and one of the great things about this particular partnership between the communities who will engage in the sheltering training and MOU understanding between the communities of regional shelter in place is the development of a plan. And part of that plan, under, of course, the American Red Cross and MEMA, will be doing things like pre-shelter surveys to identify specific locations, not just one, but to build redundancy, many locations, and ensuring that they have things like a generator for power backup, ADA compliance, and things like that. So it kind of runs, the checklist itself kind of runs a gamut and covers a lot of bases.
Good. And I would have never thought of the hand washing being a problem without the power that covers all the circuits, but there it is. It's very simple, and it's just a challenge.
It's flushing as well, which could be a problem if you can't do that with so yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. True.
All right. So as of July 7th, this is the quantity of PPE that both MDPH and HMCC Region 2, as well as MEMA, have distributed to the communities in the Commonwealth. And you'll see a breakdown of different agencies who've received PPE. Not really 100% associated with the LEPC, but I thought it was pretty interesting to know the kind of resources that are available within the state and to see the types of PPE that have been donated. You'll see in a couple slides, you know, we're thankful here at the local level. We received a lot of donations, actually from a lot of people within this this meeting right now. And we're always appreciative of that kind of thing. So thank you very much. And so with COVID-19, there have been not a flooding, but there's been more opportunity out there for grants. And the town of Northborough, in collaboration with Shrewsbury and Westborough, submitted for a federal assistance to firefighters grant. And it was a supplemental grant that came, I think, from the revenue stream associated with the CARES Act. But we were able to obtain $46,000 in federal contribution, and that total award amount is going to be around $51,000. And that's the intent there is to build a cache of PPE for any type of communicable disease reduction initiative. So that's a positive thing that happened. Most recently, I think it's within the last couple of weeks, we were notified of the award. And a lot of work went into creating this regional application. And I think that we see more of a trend. We're talking regional sheltering, we're talking regional grants, we're talking regional approach to the providing of service. So that may shape service delivery models moving forward, but it's just, I think, to keep in consideration as we move forward.
So something interesting about the AFG grants is the community share is based on your population. So if Northborough applied for it ourselves, we would only have a 5% community share. Shrewsbury, because of their population, has a 10% community share, and Westborough has a 5% community share. Because we applied for it as a region, we all have to do the 10% share because it's based on the largest community. So yes, while we have a 10% share as opposed to a 5% share, our odds of getting the grant skyrocket as soon as we start doing regional grants, because the feds in the state love to see, okay, this one grant is going to take care of these 3 communities instead of this one community. And luckily, we have a great relationship with both these other communities, and we've already started. Chief Purcell from Westborough has started sourcing different PPE, and we're going to try and get it from one provider who is actually already a state on the state list, so we don't have to go out and do the whole bid process and all that. So we're looking forward to this. Now, $46,000 worth of PPE may seem like a ton, but I can tell you it's amazing how prices go up once you have a pandemic. And although we're going to get what we need, hopefully, then we have an issue of where we're going to store this stuff. So that's something we've already started talking about as well. Are we going to store it locally? Are we going to store it in Shrewsbury, and then we'll just go get it when we need to get it, or Westborough? So we're still working on that. But great partnership with these communities. I can't stress enough.
And the other interesting thing about the local cost share, although it's now 10% of the award amount, it's divided by 3 if you split it equally amongst the partners. So kind of a cost savings and leveraging of resources there. So like I said, we've at the local level received a lot of donations from LEPC partners, local communities, local businesses within the community. Would like to just thank those people. So thank you for donating all that.
So John, this is an interesting thing I found out the other day. I was on the PA meeting with Jason and Linda. And one of the things, that's the public assistance through FEMA grant, that they told us is we can take these donations, we can monetize them and use them for our 25% cost share, part of our 25% cost share of the FEMA grant. So that's terrific. It'll help a little bit. So I haven't reached out to Chief Larry yet. I know he's on this meeting, so I'm gonna, or anyone else, I know Scott's on this meeting as well, who may have received donations. You guys could work on putting together a spreadsheet and get it into Linda or Jason or myself. Probably Linda's the best one for central coordination. We can use those numbers to help us. Excuse me?
I'm here.
Yeah, I know you're here. I
No,
saw you down there.
in the meeting.
No, I said I saw you on the meeting. I saw you down
Oh.
there. Yep. And Scott's here too. Okay. So let me stop my share here. So obviously with the Zoom meetings, it kind of changes the way we do things, but I wanted to take a second and go around the room and see if anybody has anything they'd like to talk about. I thought we put the incident in there for the
We didn't put it in. I didn't know if the anything.
Okay. So I did have one incident I wanted to review. I'm just going to talk about it real quick. And it's not necessarily a hazmat incident, but it's something that any of you could run into. And that was, we had an incident at a vehicle charging station up at the Walmart. We had a reported fire at the charging station. Engine company rolled in and found a $180,000 electric Porsche plugged into the charging station. Actually, it was unplugged and the guy pushed it away because it won't run anymore. And the charging station burning. The Porsche was 4 days old and had 400 miles on it. So the charging station, so
Wow.
you know, you have the independent charging station. Well, it wasn't actually the charging station. Up at Walmart, there's a big cabinet behind it. That cabinet's what was burning. Once we got grid there, we shut the power down. They checked the power was shut down. They checked again if the power was shut down at the unit. We opened it up. There was still some residual fire. We hit it with a CO2 extinguisher, and one of our guys got a fairly significant electrical shock from it. And we're like, there's no power. How can that be? Because the wall of the door was covered with capacitors that neither the people we talked to at the site, nothing at the site, either anyone at Walmart or anyone with the company that we called before who owns the place, the charging station, told us about. So luckily it was just, it was hand and arm and numbness and tingling, no permanent damage. But it was quite the shock for the firefighter that discharged the extinguisher into it. Now CO2 is normally would be the preferred extinguishing agent for charge electrical, but he was very close to it, and because we assumed it was dead, and it jumped right across and got him. Interestingly enough, I put together a case study. I sent it out to the marshal's office, and they called me that day and said, "We need to talk to you about this," because nobody was aware of this. It wasn't labeled. There was nothing on the panel that indicated there were capacitors. So this big cabinet filled with electrical said nothing on it that said, "Caution, capacitors, you know, even after power shut down, there's still power here," and all that. And these capacitors were fairly significant. They were 40 amp capacitors, I believe, and there were 6 of them on the door. So we're lucky that it was only a minor shock, but the marshal's office caught me immediately. They brought in the code enforcement for the electrical section, and they were doing a deep dive into it. And I thought they were gonna have to rewrite some of the potential regulations to address that, to ensure that the signage was put up. So when we do respond again, it says, "Use caution, still charged," because we actually could have stood by and let it burn out because it wasn't going anywhere. It was contained, but it was still smoldering. So the captain said, "Just go ahead and hit it and knock it down." And that's what happened. So again, it's not necessarily LEPC related, but it's some great information for you all to know. I don't know what happened to the Porsche, but I can tell you, this guy, why you have a $180,000 Porsche parked at a Walmart, I don't know. But I think it was owned by the charging station is owned by VW. When you go all the way back through, you find that it's owned by Volkswagen. Porsche is also owned by Volkswagen. So I think it was a approved charging station for them to use. He was on his way up to a place further up in Hampshire. He was cool. He wasn't freaking out. He wasn't angry. I said, "These are 400 miles on $180,000. He goes, "Yeah, I'll just call the lemon law and they'll come take it and give me a new one." I went, "Okay, I guess when you can afford a $180,000 Porsche, you don't get stressed out when it burns up." So I don't know, but I just wanted to mention that. Go around the room here and see if anyone has anything to say. Leslie?
First of all, could the injury have been worse if he had been standing a little closer? Could there have been an electrocution? How bad could this have been?
The injury, yeah, I think what happened is he only got the shock from one of the capacitors because he was aimed at only one section of the door. Had he been on a wider pattern or aimed at more of them, I think he could have gotten more of a hit. So all it really did was it gave him a shock, made him jump back. He dropped the extinguisher and bolted, but it went all the way up his I believe it was his right arm up to his shoulder. It didn't get any further. Had it been stronger and gotten towards his, and had more of an effect, and yeah, it could have definitely been worse.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the reasons the marshal's office called me immediately and said, "We need to talk about this. Call us immediately." So we did a quick.
Yeah. I'm sorry that happened to him. And I want to thank you
Yeah.
all for the, yeah, I mean, that's scary.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for the work on the grant. I think that's fantastic. Are they encouraging, is it that they're encouraging as much regional activity as possible, or is it because it was quicker for them to approve it because it was a threefer?
No, the firefighters grant has always leaned towards regional. Actually, just about all federal grants, if you can justify a regional application, are much more likely to be approved, mainly because they say, okay, you're getting more bang for your buck. So for instance, the one that we have currently holding, and we hope we get it, is for our portable radios. We put in last year, we got booted out. This year we went in with Shrewsbury and Westboro and said, this is a regional grant, so we can all talk to each other. We have, we can talk to our police, we can talk to Marlboro, we can talk to everybody. So it's much more attractive to the feds to get more bang for their buck.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And please let me know if you need help with anything. I plowed through those two FEMA 1 and 2 courses back in March, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Right when COVID was hitting.
Yep.
I couldn't get to the computer fast enough. So I'm all done with those.
Those would come into play without question if we opened the EOC. And again, in this case, with COVID, we chose not to. We could have. Many communities did. Like 80 or 90 some communities in the Commonwealth did. More did not than did, mainly because of staffing and cost levels, to be honest with you. But luckily, we had our COVID committee that took on a lot of that stuff that the EOC would, and John took on a large portion of that as well. So that helped. So Bob Warren, anything else, Leslie? I don't mean to leave you. Anything else?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much for all your work. We appreciate it very, very much, both of you.
And of course, as usual, the grant was written by this guy,
By Mike.
not me.
Thank
So
you, Mike.
Yeah.
he wrote it for all three of us. So that was awesome.
Well, thank you very much.
Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chief, and thanks, Mike, and the others. I'm a big fan of regionalization, approaching this in a regional effort. I actually serve on a regional planning authority, and anytime you see communities working together, it's a positive signal, and it's just a better result. So I congratulate you for doing that. And yeah, I have really nothing to add other than very curious about that Walmart situation with electric vehicles. As you know, National Grid's promoting electric vehicles. We're probably paying, 2/3, 3/4, or sometimes 100% of the cost of the charging stations for municipalities. So we're actively doing that, and I wasn't aware that there was an issue with capacitance on the inside door of those cabinets. So
Nobody was.
Yeah.
If you go to Wegmans, you have that freestanding unit. There's no cabinet behind it. But my guess is in the ground somewhere, there's the same type of thing. I don't know for sure. At Walmart, you have that whole big enclosure behind it. And that's where this issue took place. So it was interesting.
Yeah, and some of these can charge at a rate of 6 or 7 kilowatts, 12 kilowatts, 14. The fast chargers are up to 350 kW. Now you need a big transformer. You basically need the same transformer to do one of those that you need to power a Walmart. Okay, a 750 kVA pad mount transformer. So I can see a guy buying one of the nice Teslas and thinking he can plug it in at his home and realizing he's got to dig up his street and run 3-phase power and put a giant pad in his backyard to power it. I mean, it's sort of the unintended consequence of the adoption of this technology. But again, I'm interested in it and fascinated by it, and I congratulate Northborough for applying through regional means to get the grant. So happy to be here. Thanks.
Mike. John?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm, Chief, in terms of our LEPC recertification, we've submitted everything that we need to, and really we're just waiting on the state through the delays due to COVID and other things to process and review it. There's nothing more for us to do, correct?
No, that's correct. In fact, Michael has, the first submission was way back with Bruce still, and Michael has been on them every month or every couple months saying, we're not losing our certification, correct? No, it's not your fault. You have everything submitted, you're good. But we keep doing that, and I think you sent some emails, so we have some documentation to indicate that we've done that, not just a phone call. But that was my concern, John, that is there anything else for us to do? No, we're 100% compliant.
All right, and that's and I appreciate that, and we certainly understand the delays given the circumstances. But as you pointed out early on, it's critical for us to make sure that certification is valid, because it is a precursor to a lot of these grants that we apply for and federal funding that we obtain. So I appreciate that you're staying on top of that. Thank you, Michael, for your work on that and for the grant too as well. We're going to make mention of that at the next selectmen's meeting. I was holding that back as a little positive note for our next board meeting.
All right, thank you very
Well,
much.
hopefully, John, we'll have a bigger announcement if we get the radios. Fingers are crossed. That should be coming out pretty soon. We're
Yeah,
hoping.
pretty
So
soon. I think FEMA's looking at August.
fingers are crossed.
Great.
David.
Thank you.
I've got nothing additional.
Thank you, sir. Joe? Yeah, you're muted.
Yep.
No,
There's
I don't have.
two Josie. I didn't know which one.
I'm sorry. I was just looking at Brock.
Okay. Just a couple of questions, Chief, with regards to the charging station. Was that in the daytime that the incident
Yes,
happened?
it was. It was like it was right around. In fact, I was just getting ready to go home. It was right around 4:30,
Yeah.
and
And
I ended up swinging up to the scene.
The reason I ask is, we've been having these very hot days recently. And, I wonder if the calculations were done correctly for that cabinet to dissipate that heat. And the other question is, do you have other charging stations similar to that in your area?
No, we don't. That's the only one that we have in Northborough with the above ground cabinets. But there are several other charging stations. Again, our concern is, and that was one of the things I was asking the marshal's office about, was do these single standy ones have the same thing underground? So we run into the same problem. So we actually, in this case, we actually called Westboro to show you how our partnership works and said, look, we don't need you guys, but you may want to send an engine company over to take a look at this.
Yeah.
So we could use it as a teaching moment. And they sent an engine company over with their captain. And then they took that back and taught their guys about it. So
right.
To get the information out.
Yeah, because if the calculations are not done correctly, you very well could be seeing, this happen again, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, but now we're aware of it. We're not going to try and put it out next time. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, I'm sorry that happened.
Thank you, Chris Carlton.
No, I'm good.
Oh my God, you're so wordy. Thank you, Mike Serapiglia.
Nothing to add. It was just a very good kind of a little bit of everything today, I think, and it was well worth the time, and good to see everybody too.
Good to see you too, Michael. Thank you. And St. Cobain was one of the contributors of PPE to us. We really appreciate it. Along with that, I shouldn't have called anyone out because I'm going to miss somebody, but there was tons of companies that called and said, "Do you need something?" And I mean, Sanofi, I can't. There was tons of them, and it was just we really appreciate it. Scott. Mr. Charpentier, our town meeting coordinator and all-around wedding coordinator. Go ahead.
Thank you. That's the one and done for that one. Just a quick update because we were talking about FEMA grants. We are still in the process of getting final approval from MEMA and FEMA on our grant application associated with the declaration from March 2018, the disaster declaration. That application is to fund a new backup generator at the highway garage that will have adequate capacity to provide power to our fuel island. Currently, when the highway garage loses power, so does the fuel island. So it's been a long, slow process. John, you've touched on it many times in the past. When we look for reimbursement from FEMA, it takes a couple fiscal years to get it. Takes even longer to get a grant. But it's in the works, and we've re-engaged with MEMA most recently, now that they're focusing back on these tasks as opposed to COVID. So stay tuned, I guess, on that side. That's all I have.
Yeah, thanks for that update, Scott. One of the interesting things is, as John was saying, if our LEPC isn't current, if our hazard mitigation plan isn't current, if our all hazards plan isn't, if any of those things are not current and certified, we don't get these FEMA grants. So, and you guys did an awesome job putting together that grant program and bringing in the what was the group that we brought in for the class that we had in
The MVP grant.
Thank you, MVP. You know,
The municipal vulnerabilities grant.
Thank you, man. Boy, I'm getting old, guys. I'm telling you, it's scary.
Yeah, we're waiting on award on that for a water system resiliency planning document. That'll be the precursor for an update to our emergency response plan. That's required to be updated soon. So that we're waiting on award for that as well.
Yeah. And Leslie, you remember that from the selectmen's approval at your last meeting to submit, you actually submitted a letter of support for that grant application as well. So again, we're trying to get every bit of funding that we can for these projects.
Yeah.
Anything else, Scott?
Nope, that's all I have, Chief.
Chief Liver. Sorry to wake you up.
The only grants available for police these days are defund. So.
Oh, here, oh God, wine.
Yeah, there's no such thing as assistance to police grants. So, no, we're well. I mean, the only significant thing that happened over here, and I wouldn't say it's significant, and probably Chris Carlton could maybe give you a little bit more detail on it. We started taking phase 1 911 calls. Chris, you can probably chime in if you want to let them know what the impact has been.
Yeah, so we started June 22nd, and I know so far we've taken 38 additional calls since then.
And they come from?
So phase 1 is, anything that doesn't come in as a phase 2, doesn't come in as a 911 call with a latitude and longitude.
Okay.
You got to clarify that.
Phase 2 was all any
calls, right?
Yeah. Phase 2 was any calls that came in geographically within Northborough, with the exception of any state highways like 290. There was a geofence on that. And
correct.
So they asked us if we would be interested in taking the phase 1 calls that used to go to state police. And then if someone called 290, 290 called 911, they'd get the state police. The state police get the information. If it was a medical emergency, then they'd have to transfer it to our station. We'd have to notify the fire departments. So now those calls, if it's on 290, it will come into Northborough Direct. It saves a lot of time. And there were other cell phones. When you called 911 on a cell phone, it would have sent you to the state police as well. So basically now everything in the geographic boundaries of the town of Northborough comes into Northborough. We also may get some boundary calls. We might get some calls for somebody on, say, Boundary Street or Mill, the street there off of a Boundary. If it's close enough to a cell tower that's in Marlboro, it'll go there, but it will also go, and they'll have to redirect it to us. But it wasn't the impact that we thought it was going to be. Phase 2 was more of an impact, but that was every cell phone in Northborough that used to call to the state police. So now everything comes directly here, so it speeds up the response. Other than that, status quo.
Thanks, Chief.
That's great. That's good to hear all that.
Yeah. Lieutenant Joe?
No, I have nothing.
Nothing. Okay. I have one other thing I wanted to mention, and that is we recently went over under our ISO, our every 5 years that ISO. You guys familiar with ISO? It's the insurance service organization that goes around and says, okay, your fire service, your dispatch, your everything is at this level, so you have a rating. So right now, Northborough's rating is a 3, which is pretty common for most career departments across the country. We're a 3-3Y, meaning we're 3 where we have hydrants and a 3Y where we're rural and don't have hydrants. My goal when I came here was hopefully to get us up to a 2. And what that does, that affects our insurance ratings for industrial and for homeowners. I don't know if we made it because it's going to take somewhere around 4 months, but I can tell you that I was able to give them all the data they needed. I know Chris was part of that as well for dispatch, and that phase 1, Chief, will help because now we can say this circuit goes to us directly instead of going to the state police. So that helps terrifically. Our lag time, Chris, our lag time numbers were awesome, I think. Lag time is the time it takes from when dispatch gets the call to work put out. And do you remember what it was? What percentage was under 60 seconds? It was a fairly significant amount. I sent it to you. I don't have it in front of me. And then Scott, they also reached out to the water department. I think we talked to Tim, and they told me our water system is outstanding. They were very happy with that. So with all of that in mind, hopefully in 4 months or so, and I don't know why it takes so long, because they used to actually come out and inspect each and every truck and make sure you had, you know, the left-handed smoke, whatever, and all kinds of other stuff. Now they don't do that anymore. They just ask you, is your truck okay? Yeah, truck's good. Okay, check it off. So hopefully our numbers can go from a 3 to a 2. There's very few 2s and even fewer 1s. When I was in Belmont, I got us from a 3 to a 2, which is unheard of in such a small community. Hopefully we can do the same thing here, and that does affect the insurance rates for homeowners and for individuals. Hopefully we'll have a good decision on that shortly. And I think that's it. Yes,
If
John.
I just comment, just the same thing. I'd like to thank Mike for the donation of the masks that we got from St. Cobain.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Chief, if I may, just one final comment. Again, for LEPC members that are not Town of Northborough employees or officials, just reminding folks during the process for trying to reach out to our residents to let them know that our town meeting had been changed, we did use our code red emergency notification system. We sent out messages in a non-emergency fashion. But my reason for mentioning this is, one, that we exercise that periodically, and we try to exercise it in a way that for something that's important. We don't send out a lot of communications, because what happens is, that all the noise, people start to tune out. If you send out an emergency notification every time there's a tree down or something, it loses its impact, in my opinion, and the opinion of the public safety staff. But just the folks that like Bob and Mike, just reminding your folks that LEPC members, where you have people that don't live in Northborough, but they're working here, to sign up for that code red emergency notification, because all communities in this area are using that. So if there's an emergency you need to be notified about, that's how we're going to get it out. There is no reverse 911 anymore. And so we encourage everybody to sign up for the code red emergency notification. It's the same system that Shrewsbury, Westboro, Southborough, actually Northborough was the one that brokered the deal for all the area communities and got a discount. We all moved to this platform together so that it was uniform and we weren't all using different notification systems. But just reminding folks, you know, if you have employees, particularly your employees that are a part of your safety crews in your facilities, and make sure that they're signed up for this, so that if something significant happens in Northborough and we send out an emergency notification, that they get that right away. So just a little PSA for everybody. Just touch base with your folks, make sure at least your key staff and your management team is signed up for that. And again, this is the new default that everybody is using in our region. So if something happens that might impact us or an abutting town, that's how that notification is going to go out. So you can sign up. And anybody listening at home that might be tuning into this meeting or viewing it on YouTube, you can go onto the town's website. Right on the main page, you'll see an icon called Code Red. Click on that. You can choose to be notified by landline, by cell phone, by text, by email, or all of the above. So I just hope everybody takes advantage of that. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Sean. Guys, thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. Stay safe, stay away from COVID, and have a great rest of your summer.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much,
everyone.
Chief and Mike.
Thanks, everybody.
So.
Bye, guys.